Good morning, everyone. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Tuesday, September 11th, 2018, as we get underway with what's going on this morning with respect to Hurricane Florence. Uh, we've been talking about the fact that we have a very, very complex scenario developing, and indeed that seems to be playing out according to plan. I'm just going to give a minute or two here to get a few people on. Sent out a tweet to let my Twitter audience know that we're live streaming, and also to Facebook. So we'll get a few more people on, and then we'll get going. A couple of things that you're going to notice. First off, the area of the hurricane watch is rather large. This is due to the fact that we're going to see Florence slow down as it approaches the coastline. The models, all of the global models, the European, the GFS, the Canadian, all have this idea where the system will approach the coast, or get to the coast, or just inland of the coast, depending on which model scenario you look at, and it will slow down, stall, possibly do some kind of loop before ultimately going inland. The problem is that this is going to be a multi-day process. It's not going to be just a matter of one day. That's bad enough, but it's probably going to stretch out over a couple of days. If that plays out, the of all the scenarios, and none of them are good options. The best option is really to just kind of come in and go make the landfall, move inland, and just keep on moving. But with this scenario setting up, where we're going to see the upper high kind of split in half, the storm slowing down and stalling while it starts to, tries to respond to the changes in the upper atmosphere. This is going to create a big problem. We could have a large part of the coastline being subjected to hurricane conditions for a very long period of time. It's going to impact tidal surges, storm surges, rainfall, everything. A lot to work through when it comes to what we have lying ahead. So we're going to start off. First things first is we'll start off with the Hurricane Center's forecast, which didn't, in terms of the flavor of the track, it really didn't change all that much. They're keeping the same logic, which I have to at least say, from the standpoint of past experience, when excuse me, when models forecast loops and all these little twists and turns, they don't always tend to happen. And while, by the way, you have this rather smooth line drawn for the path, it's likely that because of the intensity of this hurricane as a Category 4, and possibly even briefly reaching Category 5 status, that we might start seeing the center wobble a little bit. But the watch extends from just west of Charleston, all the way in South Carolina, all the way up to the North Carolina-Virginia border. It's actually running specifically from Edisto Beach, northeast to Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, Jacksonville, Cape Hatteras, on up north to Elizabeth City, and right up to the Virginia North Carolina border. The track basically kind of lies right in the middle. And you notice, by the way, how they widened out they widen it out just as it approaches the coastline. Suddenly, you got this sort of much wider circle. And this, I think, what they're doing is, indicating that there's going to be this slowing down, or possibly even a brief stall or a loop. And by the way, take a look at, in terms of timing, with the arrival of gales here, getting onshore at about 8 a.m. and moving inland by about 8 p.m. So weather conditions are going to start deteriorating as early as Thursday morning along the Carolina coast. Uh, the rains will start moving in at some point, of course, as well. And that's the other critical part of this forecast for me uh, is really trying to figure out not only this coastal track when it makes landfall, but what happens when it gets inland, because we're talking about something that is going to take a long, long time to play through, and we are going to have excessive rainfalls in somebody and a large number of somebodies are going to see extensive flooding rains from North Carolina and Virginia. By the way, these last three dots, okay, these are 24-hour increments here. So it basically takes 2 days for the center to make landfall on the Hurricane Center's forecast to make it to just north and west of Raleigh-Durham, between Raleigh-Durham and Greensboro, based on their forecast. And it should be pointed out that a number of there are a lot of models, the European, among others, that came left last night, and it's always possible that we could wind up going further left. We do have a reconnaissance aircraft in place at the moment. You'll notice you can't really see the eye as clearly as we did yesterday, and there have been two passes near the center. Still looks every bit of west-northwest. We are almost to 65 west, and we're at 26.5 north. So this thing's going to probably make it to 70 west and staying south of 30 north by a pretty good distance. So watch that where it is when it gets to 70, because that could certainly be a strong indicator of whether we're going to be seeing a bit more of a southward and westward shift in the overall track. I should at this point say that you guys saw the official National Hurricane Center map. The maps that we're going to show you going forward, which are courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com and Levi Cowan's great website. The maps that you're seeing right now and going forward should not be used for any decision making. You should be making your decisions based on official forecasts and maps done by the National Hurricane Center. You can access that by going to nhc.noaa.gov and your local National Weather Service office by going to weather.gov, and of course your local government officials who know your area far better than I do. Now, the flight pass. The passes, when you look at the wind barbs, we do see the winds in that 113 to 137 knot range. What's happening is you're getting what's known as an eye wall replacement cycle. When thunderstorms form, anytime thunderstorms form, they go through a process. The beginning cell grows, reaches, intensifies, reaches peak maturity, and then the thunderstorm begins to decay. Well, the eye wall is, just a second, sorry about that. The eye wall, my allergies are kind of kicking in the last couple of days. Excuse me. The eye wall is basically a ring of thunderstorms, a circular ring of thunderstorms that form, they peak out in intensity, and then they decay, and the eye wall will decay, and then a new eye wall will form. And this is a process that happens every 24 hours or so. And when that happens, you get these fluctuations in strength where the hurricane, as we saw yesterday, rapidly intensified. The pressure dropped to 939 millibars. Then the intensification process leveled off. We have since late yesterday afternoon, we've risen about 12 millibars to about 951, which is what the plane has found. And once the eye wall replacement cycle is complete, we are probably going to see another round of deepening or intensification. And I think that stretch of deepening and intensification is the stretch that might get this to a Category 5 hurricane. The ocean water temperatures are up close to 30 degrees Celsius, and that's certainly supportive of a Cat 5. And it's that warm water extends for quite a distance as it heads towards the southeast coast of the United States. I think that it will peak in intensity before it makes landfall, and then probably kind of come off that a little bit as it approaches the coast. I mean, it will still be every bit of a Category 4 hurricane, I think, as it nears the North Carolina coast, and that's certainly bad enough. So the 5, I think, if it gets achieved, will get achieved while it's offshore. Then it'll just kind of tail off a little bit. There's 2 reasons for that. There will be a little bit of shear going on when it gets closer to the coast. And also, if it starts to slow down as it nears the coast, you are going to see the circulation start to interact with the land, and that is likely to distort things a bit and lessen the intensity. At least if we can take the edge off of this severe hurricane, that would be a very good thing. We'll check back on this in a little bit as the plane makes its 3rd pass. It's flying out at this point. You can see where the plane icon is, and then he's going to just kind of flip around here and move up, and then make a 3rd pass so that we can have at least 3 points of center passes. So it may not happen by the time we get done with this live stream, but we'll check it out. Now here's the satellite loop, the close-in satellite loop, and the eye is cloud filled, so that's telling you that that it has weakened just a little bit. Still, again, you're seeing those winds though, showing winds of 113 to 137 knots. So it's still at that Category 4 status. Clearly, you start to see. You can see actually the beauty of these visible satellites. You see the detail of the cloud tops here, the high cloud tops near the eye. And I think what you'll probably see is as we go through the day, as this next round of intensification likely to get underway, you'll start to see the clouds disappear from the eye, and you'll get that buzzsaw look. It's beginning to, it certainly has that buzzsaw blade look now, but it'll be even more striking if we get this next round of intensification. And we can look when we look at the intensity models this morning. There are just about all of them have it as a Category 4 hurricane. You got one of them that's touching the Category 5 line, but Category 4 right through 72 to 84 hours, and it's at this point that where you see the big drop down where landfall is is indicated, and they all take it down. Some take it down slower than others, and I think that could be a reflection of whatever tracking model that you match up with this, that winds up perhaps showing a slowing down, a stalling, a straddling of the coastline, that kind of thing. And that's why maybe some of them are sloped a bit kinder than the sharper drops that you see. So the sharper drops imply a track inland. The hurricane tracking models from 6Z last night, and now we have the 12Z model runs. I kind of clicked through that too fast, so if you caught a glimpse of the 6Z. But the concentration of models remains. All the landfalls, they all have landfalls. They all have landfalls in North Carolina, but there are some of them that you can see kind of come in from the east to the west and then move into the southeastern corner of South Carolina. And that is a concern, of course, if we wind up with something that comes to the coast and then sort of straddles it and then maybe turns westward. And we saw a few of the overnight global models show this. The ensembles last night have continued to shift to the left on the GFS. The GFS ensembles, most of the members are either, they're getting tighter and tighter in terms of their cluster, but most of the members coming in to the North Carolina coast, and even some of them now back to the North Carolina, South Carolina border. With again, this is the GFS ensembles. So now at this point, why don't we take a look at what we're dealing with respect to the upper air, because this is where things get this is where things get dicey, and hang on. I'm just going to make sure I got the window there. And let's see. Get the paint box up. And there you have it. All right, so let's just center it a bit. Okay. So this is the European model view at 48 hours. What I did was basically show where I thought the maximum impact area was going to be. It kind of lies very. It's pretty much close to the hurricane watch zone, but I wanted to include at least include the inland areas with regards to the first area that's going to wind up with some big rains. So that's why I have the circle drawn back the way I have it. Now, here we have this upper high that builds that's building off the east coast, and the if you follow the height line that goes around it, that's basically just like an isobar. You're going to have the winds blowing clockwise, so you've got a southeast wind around the west side of that high, and that is steering Florence up toward the coastline. But we have a change, as always with these things. They don't remain static. Hopefully, it comes back in a hurry. I apologize for the interruption, and keep your fingers crossed that that's the only one. So you've got this, as I was saying, the ridge splits in two, and you wind up with a very large upper air weakness that develops in between. And basically, Florence has to figure out where to go in all of this. And with this high, that will get stronger over time as we move through Friday and into the weekend, it's likely to respond to that and then take a track more toward a more of a westerly track, and a track that's going to at least adjust south and west over time. So I think that's why with a number of the models doing this overnight, I think this is why the Hurricane Center made it a point in their discussion to speak about this. And I think what they'll probably do is as we get closer, there's no point in really kind of getting into all of this now in terms of the fine details, because first things first, you got to deal with the landfall and get everybody out and get that message out, and then we can deal with the nuances. I think that it's pretty obvious that this, with the kind of unusual upper air setup that we have, that we are dealing with something that perhaps is a little bit different than what we're accustomed to. Certainly, Harvey proved that last year when it moved inland, and then we wound up seeing it stall for a long period of time and created those incredible rainfall amounts that occurred. So we can jump now to the GFS, and we'll take a look at how the GFS shows the upper air first, and then we'll compare it to the other models. But there's that upper high. You can watch the hurricane approaching the coastline. This is Thursday morning at 2 a.m. and it's moving northwestward. It comes inland in the North Carolina coast, probably the furthest east of all the models, but it has tightened up a little bit. And then notice it just kind of nudges east, and then suddenly it starts driving southwestward and actually makes a full landfall right on the North Carolina-South Carolina border. The reason it's doing this is if you watch the upper highs, watch how the upper highs change through all this. I'll go back. There's the offshore upper high. It has the storm cradled, splits in half. Part of the high goes to the west, part of the high goes to the east. It's kind of like a parting of the Red Sea. Now, you might say at this point, you could say, well, Joe, how come it can't move straight north? It could, but the reason why it doesn't is because the upper ridge to the west really gains control and strength of this. So it puts a stop to it from moving northward. You can see it's now building here as we go into Friday night and Saturday. It's building northward across the Great Lakes and into New England. So that occurs and it builds over the top. So it's cradling it a second time. the first time the upper high cradles it offshore to bring it to the coastline, then you get a break, and then you get the stronger inland ridge builds around it and cradles it a second time and drives it southwest and westward. And now, of course, when we're at this point being inland, uh, we then we are dealing with an excessive rain event on the models on the European, the GFS, all of them for somebody have a mega rain event. The question for we are now into early next week. Note, look at how much time it has taken here, and this is because we have no upper trough. There's nothing to move this along. We're dealing with this. It's working out of a ridge, and this is a big problem. At least with an upper trough, something comes up. You go through it, it's done, and it keeps going. This is a long duration event, as we said. But we're seeing a hurricane approach the Carolinas on Thursday. And we're talking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday morning. It is still within a couple of 100 miles from wherever it is, or 200 or 300 miles from wherever it has made landfall. This is a very, very slow moving system. And at this point, it'll be waiting for a trough that's coming down. You'll notice that we have the westerlies in Canada through all of this. The ridge finally does weaken, and the westerlies in Canada come down and pick it up and eject it out to the northeast, gone and goodbye. But it's going to take a long, long time. So you can just imagine how much rain could wind up falling out of all of this. Here's how it looks at the surface. And remember, this is one model solution. This is not a forecast. If you're watching this from home and you just joined us, these maps are not to be used for making decisions. They are models of the atmosphere. The official forecast is the National Hurricane Center's forecast, which we will, I'll show it to you again before I come back to the board. But here is the GFS on the surface. Sorry, I ran it a little too fast. Approaching, this is Wednesday night, 8 o'clock. Here we are for Thursday afternoon at 2. So at this point, weather conditions are already deteriorating. I wouldn't focus on the track. I'd focus more on the flavor of the motion, that slow down and stall, dropping southwestward, coming inland on the North Carolina-South Carolina border, and then through the mountains of North Carolina into Virginia. In the mid-Atlantic states, this is going to be a crazy rainfall event if this works to pass. And now, if it's reacting to a trough that's coming across the northern plains and into the Great Lakes early next week, then you have to ask yourself whether these remnants will eventually work their way up the eastern seaboard. This is one scenario that would bring remnants up to the northeast. You'd have a remnant low. Something like this would produce, a little bit of wind and a little bit of rain. I don't know that it would be a huge deal, but this is so far out into the long range that I don't even want to get into what that could mean for the Northeast, because it'll be pale in comparison to whatever is going to be happening in the Carolinas. The European model last night and the Canadian as well, if you look at the tracks of the surface lows on all the models, they're really not that different. They all kind of have the same idea here. The European is probably the model that is furthest south and west of all the models. And let me just set this map here. I'm gonna just make one more change. I like to to use the other anomaly map because it's a little easier to see. All right, so here is the approach. By the way, the warm front has moved on through. Just going to give time to load. Everybody's going to tropicaltidbits.com to look at maps these days, so it's keeping his website very busy and slowing his servers down. You can help him out by joining his Patreon page and help him. He wants to get additional servers to deal with all the traffic that he has. So here we go. Here's Florence making its approach on the European. Unfortunately, we only have this in 24-hour increments, so we can't really see what's in between. I can, but you cannot. So I'll just basically verbalize it to you. So this is Wednesday evening. They're at this point, the GFS, they're kind of the same. This is where they vary a little bit. The European is south and west of the GFS position. It's actually west of Wilmington as it moves to the coast. This is Thursday evening, 8 p.m., and then Friday evening, 8 p.m. It's barely moved. So you can probably assume that, in fact, I can tell you, it does a similar thing to the GFS where it does this sort of very small anticyclonic loop where it moves northeast and east and then turns southwestward again. So in that 24 hours, you're dealing with a storm that essentially sits on the coast, very, very slowly weakening through this point. And then it takes it west into southeastern North Carolina in the next 24-hour period. So that is an incredibly, you're basically going, this is Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. That's 48 hours to move probably about 100 or so miles. So you're talking about something that's moving at 2 or 3 miles an hour at best. So this is on Saturday evening. Sunday, the European wants to shove it further west into northeast Georgia. So this would suggest from the European, it's suggesting that the heavy rain area is going to be further south in the GFS. And here is where it turns it northward. The GFS has the low in central Kentucky by Monday night. I'm sorry, the European has the low in central Kentucky on Monday night, and the GFS has the low, by comparison, a deeper low in the Carolina Mountains. So it's further east. But they both basically have the same motion. It's that the European would put at risk areas further south and west along the Carolina coast. And I think this obviously is the reason why the Hurricane Center has done what it has done with regards to the hurricane watch. So let me just once again, for those of you who joined late, this is the National Hurricane Center's forecast. The hurricane watch that is up from Edisto Beach to the North Carolina Virginia border. The track really wasn't changed too much. It was perhaps it was nudged slightly to the west. I think what you're going to see the Hurricane Center do is basically digest today's models to see if the overnight model trends are continuing, and you might see some adjustment as in the forecast later today. I think if you're going to see an adjustment, you might see a nudge to the southwest. This ridge that's building is a bit of a powerhouse, and clearly it's in complete control of the destiny of Florence. All right, so let's look at a couple of other things in the meantime, because we do have disturbed weather in the Northwest Caribbean beginning to move into the Gulf of Mexico. This area has shown signs of organization since yesterday. It kind of has the look on the broader satellite picture where you start to see the cirrus outflow on the outside on the outer edges of it. Conditions are going to be conducive for development when it goes into the Gulf of Mexico. We don't see any signs of a circulation, but maybe at some point that could happen in the next couple of days. Some of the models do try to flare the slow up, others do not, but it is something we should watch because of the fact that it may have an impact on the strengthening ridge that is going to be building to the west of Florence and then gradually building across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. So this could be the reason why Florence is nudging itself a bit more southwest on the recent model runs. In the meantime, by the way, a look at Tropical Storm Isaac, which on the satellite signature this morning looks a bit healthier. Top winds 70 miles an hour. There's an opportunity for this to strengthen into a hurricane again before it heads for the Leeward Islands. I'll pull the map up. This will be the first time I'm looking at this, so we'll have to go back because at this point it's gone. We'll let the GFS load up. And by the way, we also have Tropical Storm Olivia. Talk about trying to stay on your toes. We have Tropical Storm Olivia coming into Hawaii from the northeast, and that is unusual. This is just taking a while, folks. So just bear with me. I'll pull up the map soon. Should be load, 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 load. People need to not go on the website on Levi's site when I'm there, because my audience comes first. Okay, all right. So let's get that first map going here, and there's Isaac in the lower corner, in the lower right corner, approaching. GFS doesn't really do too much with it in terms of pressure. Kind of holds it as it moves it right through the southern leewards and then into the Caribbean, and then it sort of moves it west and then gradually just kind of loses it as it moves across. I don't know if that's the case. There will be some kind of surviving entity to follow along. And then with respect to the Gulf of Mexico, you do see a bit of an inverted trough here where the isobar kind of pops up in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. So there probably is some sort of low center and a trough that heads off to the Texas coast. The GFS at least doesn't seem to be doing anything with this. Oh, hold on. Yes, Jeffrey. Hang on, everybody. See if I can get. Jeffrey, is that you?
That's me.
All right. You know what? Where are you Skyping from?
The weather studio.
All right. Hang up and call me back again, and because I'm live streaming on YouTube right now, so we'll bring you in. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right, folks. So it looks like we're going to have a guest here. So just give me 1 second, and we'll get him ready to go. Do everything on the fly. All right. Jeffrey, do me a favor.
Yes.
All right,
yes.
I need to bring you up online, and I'm trying to bring the website up. So, all right, let me see if I can. Let me just see if you came up this way.
If I'm sideways, then that's on my end, and I'll flip.
You are sideways.
Okay.
I have to see if I can see you. All right, everybody, bear with me here, folks. I'm trying something.
Sorry, Joe. I'm like ruining your live video here.
No, that's all right. I'd love to get you on here. All right, you know what? Just hang up and call one more time because I have to bring you up on the website. So just hang up again and just dial me right back. Patience, folks. This will be good. We can bring them on here. I know this was not planned. All right, here we go. All right, I got you there. Now, let me just make sure I got your audio. So just talk to me.
Mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Keep going.
Mic check. Mic check. Mic check.
You need to be a little louder here.
Sure. I think the microphone might have been covered up a little bit, but I'll talk louder. Mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hang on. I'm trying. Keep going. Sorry, just a little bit more.
Test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Test.
All right.
Test.
I think I got it. All right. So now just let me. I just want to switch to my guys here, and let me ask them really fast. Can you guys hear Jeffrey? Okay, and let me know. So, so Jeff, I was just kind of going over what the models did last night, and it seems to me that when you look at the tracks on all the models, they're really not that different. The main issue is really where it winds up making landfall. They all seem to have the same idea where it gets to the coast, kind of stalls out, does this clockwise loop, and then moves inland, and it takes about 48 hours for it to play out.
Right. Yeah. The GFS and the Canadian were still doing it when I looked this morning. First of all, they're kind of the outliers at this point, where they want to bring this thing a little bit further north, whereas this is more that would be more of a Virginia issue and a north and Outer Banks issue. But even still, even with that northern track, it eventually hits that big ridge, and the ridge just says, no, you got to go west, and it eventually moves inland. So I mean, you're just talking about torrential rain for a lot of folks inland, as far inland as the mountains in Virginia, Lynchburg, Asheville, North Carolina is probably getting a lot of rain, and that's way in there. So, oftentimes when these situations they issue a state of emergency, you say yes, it's a state of emergency, but it's not for the whole state. This storm is really the entire state is probably going to get affected in one way or another by this storm.
Yes. Oh, no question. And
North Carolina is big too. North Carolina, South Carolina. I mean, we're talking east to west, they are very big. So for you to feel effects from a tropical system, on the border of Tennessee, it needs to be a pretty strong system.
Well,
so you're not feeling the wind, but you're again, the rain could be really
look. There's no question in my mind that for somebody, this is going to be a really excessive rain event. This might be. I don't want to overstate it at this stage, because I still would like to see how things play out when it makes landfall. But that being said, this setup is not that different from what happened with Harvey in Texas, where you had the storm basically splitting a ridge on either side, and then finding itself in the general no man's land, where it just meanders for 2 or 3 days, and somebody winds up with feet of rain. Part of the circulation here, even after it goes inland, part of the circulation is going to remain over water for a good chunk of 4 days or more. What's going to stop? What's going to stop it from producing 1 to 2 feet amounts, or even higher in some places, and particularly in the mountains, where you're going to have orograph, the lift going on, and everything else.
Right. I mean, I don't think it's on the same level as Harvey, and that is only because it looks like at some point this thing gets picked up by a trough, whether it be Monday or Tuesday, and gets brushed out.
Right. But you still have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That's 4 days for somebody in terms of rain. So you got to be careful. There have been instances. You go back to Camille. It was not only the landfalls of Category 5 on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, but it was when it went into the mountains of Tennessee and Virginia and West Virginia, and this one moved along. It didn't just sit there. It actually moved at a fairly decent clip. Produced 30-inch plus rainfalls in the mountains in a 24-hour time frame. I mean, that was that was even worse, because it came. I don't. How could spread it out over 4 days, or put it over in 24 hours? It's still bad either way. But
I'm building a graphic right now. It'll be ready in about a minute. But I mean, the rainfall numbers already that are getting spit out are pretty scary.
I saw WPC, and they're usually pretty good with the numbers. I mean, they put on their map. I didn't read the discussion, but I guarantee you that they probably mentioned higher amounts. But they put every bit of a foot to a foot and a half on their forecast map for much of North Carolina and in Virginia, because they're assuming they're kind of following the GFS track, and that would favor the heavy rains for Virginia, North Carolina. But if you look at the European, it's a little bit further to the left, so you would shift the rain axis a bit further left, but the outcome is the same. It's just that it's the geography that'll be a bit different, but someone's going to get it from that standpoint.
It's wild, because you're talking to well into the mountains of Virginia and West Virginia even. You're talking heavier rain amounts there. And it's so funny because geographically speaking, as the bird flies, places like Charleston, Myrtle Beach Myrtle Beach, I want to leave out, but places like Charleston, and down the South Carolina coast, they may not get much rain at all. And
By the way, I should mention, I don't know if I did, this is my colleague Jeff Banson that we work together at Fios One News. Jeffrey is on in the morning. I'm on in the evening. So you know, he's finishing his shift, and I'm going to be starting mine a bit later on. So I just want to, just tell everybody on my YouTube channel who you are, which I should have done at the very beginning.
I appreciate that.
This is what
And
happens when you get no sleep, because I didn't get to bed till after 1 o'clock because I decided to do a midnight update last night on YouTube. And that by the time I was finished with that and went to bed and did a couple of other things, it was at about 1:30. Um,
mhm.
the
Oh
the
man, these numbers here. I'm gonna. If you're ready, I'm gonna show you the graphic I built here.
you
These are
know what? Hold that. Just read
sure.
it to me. Don't show it. Read it to me.
Okay. Okay. So these are GFS numbers, and I'm going to compare them with Euro numbers.
Okay.
So, leading up to this storm, you're picking up half an inch to an inch
All right.
already. As the storm makes landfall, that balloons to 2.5 inches in Virginia Beach. Boy, all right. Okay, I see what I have here. So I had the contour for the Euro and then the numbers for the GFS. So the GFS, as we were talking about, does that little northward thing. So it's really Virginia Beach that gets hammered first.
Right.
But
Well,
then
that's assuming
eventually,
it's right. But what
well,
kind
I'm
of
assuming
total
right.
rainfall? What total rainfall amounts are we talking about here?
So by Monday, we're looking at 9.48 in Virginia Beach. We're looking at almost 13 in Wilmington, almost 9 in Raleigh,
Right.
5.5 in Lynchburg, Virginia, 6.8 in Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm going to actually throw on the Euro numbers to see if there's any outliers with that, but I would almost assume it's higher with the in certain
It'll
spots.
probably be higher, but further to the left,
Yes, I
and
agree.
a little south and west.
Yeah, let's see.
By the way, we should mention at this point, because I know I did see a couple of questions with regards to areas, let's say from the Delmarva Peninsula north and northeast, with respect to the storm making landfall. You're not going to see anything of consequence. Uh, we're not going to see anything of consequence with regards to land with what's happening now as it approaches the coast. The question for the longer range, and that's into next week, and I said that this earlier, is what happens after it moves inland. It gets, this trough that's going to be swinging down as the jet stream drops from Canada is going to pick it up and then take it away up to the northeast, and perhaps that might mean for some remnant rain here in one form or another later Monday or Tuesday of next week, but nothing really until then at the earliest. So there's no, the tidal impact we're getting because of the new moon. So that's not that's really not hurricane induced, and that really is about it.
All right, Joe. The Euro.
Give me the euro. Give me the
This
total numbers roughly.
This I will give it to you right now. This is for the Euro, and I'll start with number one because it even exceeded my expectations of what it would be. Wilmington, 40,
40
40.9,
inches of rain.
40
Well,
inches of
look,
rain.
it takes 48 hours for it to move 100 miles on the European. Um, it takes 48 hours for it to move 100 miles on the European. Yeah, and we're talking about something that the European brings in just to the southwest of Wilmington and then moves it into southeastern North Carolina, right near the coast. It takes 2 days for it to do that. You're going to wind up with at least a couple of feet of rain if that's right. I mean, whenever I see
Right.
these big numbers, after a while, it's kind of, it sort of gets lost. You can appreciate the magnitude of it, but it's sort of like when you predict a couple of feet of snow and you get 3 feet. after a while the numbers sort of become a bit meaningless. But we know it's big numbers. We know it's going to be
Yeah,
big numbers for somebody.
I'll run a few others real quick. 6 Raleigh, 8 Columbia, 6.5 Charleston, 6.5 Asheville, 3 Greensboro. Actually, significantly less Virginia Beach and Richmond. We're
Right,
talking
because it's
an
further
inch and a
because
half.
it is further south and west.
Correct,
Uh,
correct. That's exactly it.
the area. I mean, look, whoever gets clobbered with the rain at the end of the day is going to, someone's going to get clobbered. I'm just going to just make a special mention of the folks in Western Virginia and in Eastern West Virginia in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where they've already had some places there. There are a number of them that are on my YouTube channel on a regular basis. There are folks there that seen 30 to 40 inches of rain in the last 2 months. They've seen a year's worth of rain in 2 months. The ground
Right.
there is beyond saturated. The dams are filled to capacity. So this is not good for that particular area. It's not good for anybody, but it's especially not good for the Western Virginia and the eastern part of West Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to think. I mean, to throw the word catastrophic out there, of course, that's
Yeah,
going to be.
let's be a little careful with the hyperbole at this point, if only
I
because of
know
the
it.
fact,
Right.
Jeffrey, if only because of the fact that um, it really the scenario here is very complex. It's not often that you get models doing this sort of thing where the globals at least are all doing it. This slow down, stall, loop, straddling back right along the immediate coastline. I kind of think we have to sort of make sure that that's how it's going to play out, and not be something that winds up rolling inland. I think it is going to slow down and stall because you're going to have this thing, the ridge splitting, and it's going to be sitting in no man's land until the upper high rebuilds across the Great Lakes and New England, and then starts to steer it. Then it starts to move it again. So there is about a 48-hour window where it's not going to be moving very much. The other thing is, by the way, I just want to mention, I've been talking about the fact I got the satellite loop up here now on the full screen, and you can see the latest picture. I'm just going to refresh it really fast to make sure it's updated. And you've got Florence. The eye has filled a bit. It's doing this eye wall replacement cycle thing.
Yep, eye wall replacement.
Right, but you do have this area of disturbed weather in the northwestern Caribbean that's going to move into the Gulf of Mexico. So, that might be a player when it comes to the strength of that ridge that rebuilds to the west of Florence. So we're going to have to watch that closely. If something develops out of there, it could expand the outflow and build that ridge even faster, which may mean for a more westerly track as it comes inland. So I think we have to be a little bit careful.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to be a lot
The
careful now in terms of how we look at this as it approaches the coastline.
Yeah, let's. I don't know if you touched on this yet, but as far as impacts here at home go,
I just said a little while ago, I'll say it again. As far as, for New Jersey, Long Island, Hudson Valley, Southern New England, Eastern Pennsylvania, you want to include Delaware in the mix here. Nothing of consequence is going to be happening here other than the showers and storms that'll be popping up because we're going to be in this tropical air mass. But as far as being hurricane related, no, I don't see really any issues. The tides are running high because of the new moon. So,
hmm
you know, the question is next week, late in the weekend next week, assuming it plays out in this slow scenario that's being shown, do we wind up with some rain out of it as the remnant low comes northward? Does it do it? Very important is going to be whether if that happens, and it may happen. It probably will happen in some fashion. But is it east of the Appalachians like the GFS has, or is it west of the Appalachians like the European has? Because if it's west of the Appalachians, then we're not going to see much of anything here. All the rain will be, from central and western Pennsylvania westward, and that's it. If it's east of the Appalachians, it's a different story. So
Right.
there's certainly no certitude here at this point, obviously.
Right. I'm hoping at worst what we would get here, maybe down the Jersey Shore, would be something on the order of moderate coastal flooding, and anything else. My hope is just minor, and especially again if it takes that more westerly, southwesterly track, that's what you'll get. And real quick here, because my phone's about to die, so I'll make this last point, and then I'll be on my way.
Okay.
Uh, the National Hurricane Center's latest forecast, as of 8 a.m., actually has a slight weakening as it makes its approach to the Carolinas. So maybe
Well,
you're looking. I know
yeah.
some people were
Oh,
talking about this becoming a
oh,
5 before landfall, but my hope, if this comes
oh,
to
no, no.
fruition, is that it would be something on the order of a weaker Category
Jeffrey,
4 storm.
it's gonna, it probably will make Category 5 in the next 2 days, and it probably will weaken a little, somewhat, particularly if it moves slowly, because the circulation is going to start to be, part of it will be over land, so there'll be some interaction. But make no mistake, it will be a Category 4 hurricane as it makes its approach, and that is formidable enough. Okay, so just we're still dealing with a big storm here. Bottom line, even if it winds up weakening into a strong Category 3, that is still going to be a formidable experience to get through for the coast, regardless. And I think Jeffrey's phone just died, or he froze. Yep, he's gone. All right, so that was my colleague and buddy Jeffrey Banson, who I work with, and he lent his perspective. It was a nice surprise. I just hope that you guys were able to hear it. Okay, so you had the echo. I'm sorry. Look. It's hard for me to set audio. And I've tried many times to get this resolved, and it's an issue. I'm going to need somebody to just kind of sit with me and go through OBS, the program I use, and correct this. This is what happens when I do it from home. I don't seem to have that problem doing it in the afternoon yesterday when I had Bill Goodman on. Okay, so I'm here on the board with you guys. Thanks everybody again for being here. We're coming up on 10 o'clock Eastern time. I did not get, I know, Scott, I did only briefly mention Olivia. I'm running out of time here, so I will respond to you in kind on Patreon, on the Patreon platform, which I just want to give a quick mention at this point for those of you who are interested. It's a great way to support this channel and support what I do. I do have a platform on Patreon where you can get all of my website posts along with other videos, including videos from Facebook. Oh, Joyce back, thanks for telling me. You can get all my posts from my websites, Facebook, and we will. Hold on, I'm just sorry. We are okay. Let me start this again. So you can go to my Patreon channel. It's a great way to support this channel. You get my website posts with no ads. You get videos from Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, I put them on the Patreon page. And you also get the posts that I'm not putting on anywhere else, but just to Patreon members. Plus, you can message me if you've got any questions or observations or comments, and I will respond to you very quickly. So you can do that. It's just $2 a month for the tier, and there will be there's an app. There is a Patreon app that you can use so that you can access it on your phone with ease. So I put the link up here in the chat for those of you who are interested. There's a link on the video if you're interested. And thank you very much for considering it. And also, we're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon and affiliated sites. So if you shop on Amazon using that link, Amazon throws me back a little bit of coin out of their pocket, and everybody's happy. Thanks for being here. Here's the schedule for the rest of the day. I'll probably do my next live stream at 7 o'clock tonight. From 7 o'clock tonight. So be sure to mark that time down. And there will be a Joe and Joe show tonight on Facebook, and that is at 9:15 Eastern time. So 7 o'clock on YouTube, 9:15 on Facebook, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. And of course, check out website posts at meteorologistjoechaffee.com and the website post for New York City at my other site, nycweathernow.com. 7 o'clock Eastern time for tonight's live stream, because at that point I'll have the whole new GFS in, and all the hurricane stuff, new forecasts will be there. I'll be able to digest it, and we'll go through it. Thanks everybody for being here. Really appreciate it. We'll see you later.